Today had been kind of mixed up. Katie found out that even though your feet are the same size, when shoes go on the wrong feet, they pinch. Orbie found out that when you mix all the colors together, you get the color of muck. And they both discovered that even though salt and sugar look the same, they sure don't taste it. Mom and Dad were talking about something they read in the newspaper. Katie was washing off her mud-biter Jeep when she heard them say the earth was polluted. Katie didn't know what polluted was, but she knew it didn't mean happy or healthy or spinning or anything like that. Maybe it meant sad. From the way they said it, Katie figured out that it meant sad. That made Katie feel sad, too. Orbie bounced in to throw his mud-biter into the sink, too. Orbie told Katie he had made a long track in the mud, but Katie didn't say anything. When Orbie looked at Katie, he noticed something was wrong. Because he was her best friend, he took her by the hand and brought her to the living room where Mom and Dad were reading the newspaper. Mom wanted to know what was the matter. Katie looked at both of them sadly. "I'm polluted," she said, "like the earth." Mom and Dad were a little alarmed and couldn't quite figure out what Katie meant until she explained that she had heard them talking about the newspaper. Dad told Katie that polluting didn't mean sad. It basically meant that the earth was getting dirty. People were wasting things like water, trees, and food, and making too much garbage. It was a problem. Mom could tell that Dad's explanation didn't help Katie feel any better. Katie looked at the picture of the earth in the newspaper, and then she told Mom, Dad, and Orbie, if she were the earth, she would be very sad. Everyone had to agree. Slowly, Katie turned to leave the room. Mom held Katie's hand and said to her that the problem belonged to everybody on the earth, not just Katie. "I want to make the earth happy again," Katie said. And then she almost looked like she might cry. "But I'm just a kid, and kids don't make a difference. They're just too little." Dad stood in front of the doorway so that Katie couldn't go any further. In his most ridiculous Professor Know-It-All voice, he said, "It's time for this young lady and her pink, rather spotted friend to find out how they can and already are making a difference in helping the earth." With a jump in the air and "Come with me," he led Katie and Orbie into the kitchen. With a grand sweeping gesture, Dad pointed out the garbage can. He told them that they used to put everything into the garbage. The garbage was thrown in the dump, and everything was wasted and didn't turn back into earth. It caused quite a problem. Now he swept his hands toward the recycling boxes. "How do you explain this?" he said with a big smile. "This is making a difference." He told them that most people had recycling, or were getting it soon. He told them that when they put paper in it, the old paper would be made into new paper. Paper is made from trees. So in recycling, we are helping save trees. He showed them the glass jars. These do not turn back into earth, so instead, we send them back to the factory to be turned back into glass again. Then he showed them the tin cans. The tin cans might not look like garbage, he told them, but they were going back to be melted down and made up again. Katie smiled a little smile. Orbie made a tooting sound. "We are helping the earth." "But that doesn't make too much difference. I mean, how can we help?" Katie said as she looked at the floor. With a "I'm glad you asked that," Dad jumped over to the tap. He told them that if they make sure the tap was turned off, it wouldn't drip and waste the earth's water. "There's lots of ways to save water," Dad said as he turned the tap on. "Only use the amount of water you need. No more." Katie had an idea. Orbie and Dad chased after her right up the stairs. She took out her toothbrush and said, "Turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth. You can turn it on again when you need to rinse your brush off." Professor Know-It-All, danced around and told Katie that was a good idea. Orbie grabbed a face cloth. He showed how he could wet it and then not run the water while he washed his face. Again, Dad did his Professor Know-It-All dance. Then they all sat on the side of the tub and tried to think of other things kids could do to help the earth. Katie jumped up and ran to her clothes closet. Orbie grabbed onto Dad's belt and held on as Dad raced behind her. "Don't throw your clothes out. There are lots of children that need them, and the earth doesn't," she said. Well, Professor Know-It-All stamped his feet 3 times and said he was so happy to have such smart students. Then he raced out of the room. Katie and Orbie were right in his tail. He stopped at the hall light switch. "We can save electricity if we turn the lights off when we're finished with them." Katie and Orbie clapped. They could do that too. Then Orbie tooted and raced down the stairs. Katie and Dad wrestled over who would be behind Orbie, and with a shriek and lots of giggling, Katie won. Back in the kitchen, Orbie pointed out the compost container. There were orange peels and lettuce and coffee grounds and all kinds of things in there. "We are making our own new rich earth right here in our house," Orbie tooted. Professor Know-It-All shouted, "Yes." Katie and Dad looked into the compost container and both made a face. Orbie burbled how this year's earth was going to be delicious. "Ew," they said together. To a worm, he orgled as loudly as he could. Well, Katie and Dad had to agree. Katie had the next idea. She raced to her projects table and held up a piece of paper. "If I use both sides of the paper to draw on, I'll help the trees even more." This time, Professor Know-It-All trumpeted, and Orbie joined in. Katie looked around her house. She smiled a big smile at Professor Know-It-All. She told him that she had no idea that she could do so much. She spread her arms wide open. "I hope that all my friends know they can help the earth. Little kids do make a difference." And do you know what? She's absolutely right.